Tulip Mania, 1637. The first recorded speculative bubble centered on Dutch tulip bulbs. Imagine a time when flowers were more valuable than houses. Crazy, right? That's exactly what happened in Holland in the 1630s. People went absolutely bonkers for tulips, treating them like they were the latest iPhone or a ticket to a Taylor Swift concert. At the peak of this flower frenzy, a single tulip bulb could cost as much as a skilled worker's annual salary. Talk about pedal to the metal. The rarer the tulip, the higher the price. Some folks even traded their homes for a handful of bulbs. Here's a fun fact. The most prized tulips were actually infected with a virus that made them look extra fancy. So people are literally paying top dollar for sick flowers. But like all bubbles, this one popped. Suddenly, tulips were just flowers again. Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. Imagine if the entire world's economy suddenly decided to take a really long, really bad nap. That's basically what happened during the Great Depression. It all started when the stock market threw a massive tantrum in 1929, known as the crash. Suddenly, money became as rare as a unicorn. Banks went bust, factories shut down, and jobs disappeared faster than cookies at a kindergarten party. People were so broke, they couldn't even afford to buy a loaf of bread. Some folks resorted to eating dandelions. Talk about a weedy diet. Here's a quirky detail. Believe it or not, the board game Monopoly was invented during this time. Nothing like pretending to be rich when you're actually poor, right? The Depression lasted for about a decade, feeling longer than a Monday morning. It took a world war to finally wake the economy up from its grumpy slumber. 1970s oil crisis. Imagine if suddenly filling up your car cost as much as buying a fancy dinner. That's what happened in the 1970s when the world got an oil shock, and not the kind you put in your hair. It all started when some oil-producing countries got mad at the West and decided to turn off the oil tap. Suddenly, there was less oil than ice cream on a hot summer day. Prices shot up faster than a cat climbing a tree to escape a dog. People panicked. Long lines formed at gas stations, and some folks even resorted to stealing gas. Talk about foolish behavior. Here's a funny tidbit. To save fuel, the US government lowered the highway speed limit to only 55 miles per hour. Drivers were so annoyed, they called it the double nickel limit. It was like the whole country was stuck in the slow lane. This crisis taught the world a valuable lesson. Don't put all your eggs or oil in one basket. Latin American debt crisis, 1980s. Picture this. A bunch of countries in Latin America went on a massive shopping spree, but when the credit card bill came due, they all shouted "no dinero" at the same time. Oops. In the 1970s, these countries borrowed heaps of money from international banks, thinking they'd struck a gold. But when interest rates shot up faster than a startled cat, they couldn't pay it back. It was like trying to fill a bathtub with a hole in it. The debt just kept growing. Mexico was the first to say, "Houston, we have a problem," in 1982. Soon, others followed suit, creating a financial fiesta nobody wanted to attend. Here's a quirky detail. This crisis was nicknamed the Lost Decade because economic growth in the region basically took a 10-year siesta. Talk about a long nap. The whole mess left everyone scratching their heads and thinking, maybe we should have just stuck to selling tacos and tango lessons. Black Monday, 1987. Imagine if the stock market decided to go bungee jumping without a cord. That's pretty much what happened on October 19th, 1987, a day that Wall Street would rather forget. On this not-so-magic Monday, stock markets around the world crashed harder than a clumsy waiter dropping a tray of dishes. The U.S. stock market plummeted by a whopping 22.6% in a single day. That's like losing more than a fifth of your piggy bank savings in 24 hours. Panic spread faster than gossip in a small town. Traders were frantically selling stocks like they were trying to get rid of last season's fashion. Here's a fun fact. Some people blamed the crash on computer trading programs. It was like the robots decided to throw a massive sell party and forgot to invite the humans. The good news? The market bounced back pretty quick. Turns out the economy was more rubber ball than glass vase after all. Japanese asset price bubble, 1986 to 1991. Imagine if Japan suddenly turned into a real-life game of Monopoly, where everything was wildly overpriced. That's basically what happened in the late 1980s. The Japanese economy was booming like a karaoke singer on their favorite song. Stock prices and real estate values soared higher than a sumo wrestler attempting a pole vault. At one point, the land under Tokyo's Imperial Palace was said to be worth more than all of California. Talk about some pricey royal real estate. But like a sushi roll left out too long, things started to go bad. In 1991, the bubble burst spectacularly. Stock prices and property values plummeted faster than a ninja doing a disappearing act. Here's a quirky detail. During the bubble, some Japanese banks were giving out 100-year mortgages. Imagine your great-great-grandkids still paying off your house loan. Yikes! The aftermath? Japan's economy entered a lost decade that actually lasted much longer. It was like an economic hangover that just wouldn't quit. Asian financial crisis, 1997. Picture this. Several Asian countries were living it up, their economies growing faster than bamboo shoots. Then suddenly their currencies decided to play a game of limbo. How low can you go? It all started in Thailand when people realized the Thai baht was about as sturdy as a house of cards in a windstorm. Panic spread faster than gossip at a tea party, and soon other countries like Indonesia, South Korea, and Malaysia caught the economic flu. Currencies crashed harder than a clumsy panda, stock markets tumbled, and debts ballooned like a kid's cheeks at the dentist. It was financial chaos with the side of sriracha sauce. Here's a funny fact. In Indonesia, people started hoarding Indomie instant noodles as a more stable currency than actual money. Talk about a noodle standard. The crisis left many scratching their heads, wondering if they should have invested in fortune cookies instead of stocks. Dot-com bubble, 1995 to 2001. Imagine if everyone suddenly decided that anything with .com at the end was worth its weight in gold. That's pretty much what happened in the late 1990s. The internet was the new cool kid on the block, and investors were throwing money at any company that had a website faster than you can say, "You've got mail." It didn't matter if these companies were making any money, having a cool domain name was enough. Stock prices at tech companies shot up like a rocket fueled by caffeine and dreams. Everyone wanted a piece of the digital pie, even if that pie was made of nothing but ones and zeros. Here's a quirky detail. At the height of the madness, a company called Pets.com became famous for spending millions on ads, including a Super Bowl commercial, only to go bust 268 days after going public. Talk about a short leash. But in 2000, reality hit harder than a frozen computer, and the bubble went pop faster than you can click a mouse. Turns out magical internet money trees don't exist after all. Global financial crisis, 2007 to 2008. Imagine if the entire world's economy decided to play a game of Jenga and someone pulled out the wrong block. That's basically what happened in 2007. It all started with housing in the US. Banks were handing out mortgages like they were party favors, even to people who couldn't afford a doghouse. These risky loans were then packaged up and sold around the world faster than hot dogs at a baseball game. When people couldn't pay their mortgages, the whole tower came crashing down. Banks went belly up, the stock market took a nosedive, and the economy got a serious case of the flu. Here's a funny tidbit. The crisis was so bad that even Iceland's 3 McDonald's restaurants had to close because importing ingredients became too expensive. Talk about a Big Mac attack. The aftermath? A recession so great they called it great. It was like the entire world woke up with a financial hangover, wondering, what happened last night? European debt crisis, 2009. Imagine if a bunch of European countries threw a big party, spent way too much money, and then realized they couldn't pay the bill. That's pretty much what happened in 2009. It all started when Greece admitted it had been fudging its financial numbers like a kid hiding a bad report card. Suddenly, everyone realized Greece owed more money than there are olives in the Mediterranean. The panic spread faster than gossip at a village market. Other countries like Ireland, Portugal, and Spain also found themselves in hot water. It was like a game of financial hot potato, and nobody wanted to be left holding the spud. Here's a quirky detail. During the crisis, Latvia's government had to take over a zoo because it couldn't pay its debts. Talk about a bear market. The whole mess left the European Union scrambling to keep things together, like a stressed out parent at a kid's birthday party. Who knew managing a continent could be so tricky? COVID-19 economic crisis, 2020. Imagine if the whole world's economy caught a nasty cold all at once. That's basically what happened when COVID-19 crashed the global party in 2020. Suddenly, everyone was told to stay home, and the economy screeched to a halt faster than a teenager's car when parents come home early. Businesses closed, jobs vanished, and toilet paper became more precious than gold. It was like someone hit the pause button on the entire planet. Governments scrambled to keep their economies afloat, throwing money around like confetti at a New Year's party. The stock market went on a roller coaster ride that would make even thrill seekers queasy. Here's a funny tidbit. With everyone stuck at home, the sale of sweatpants skyrocketed. Who needs business suits when your coworkers only see you from the waist up on Zoom? The crisis taught us that the global economy is about as fragile as a house of cards in a sneeze factory. Who knew a tiny virus could cause such a big mess?